Hey guys, it's Bree. So today I'm going to be making a video on storing soiled cloth pads. So once you've used them, what do you do with them before you get around to washing them? I've used a couple of different methods, and those are the methods I'm going to tell you about today because I can give you my kind of pros and cons to using those methods. The one method I don't have here that some people do use is using a mesh laundry bag. And the idea of a mesh laundry bag is so that you can just zip them up and put them in the washing machine with your clothes, or if you have a child and use cloth nappies, you can wash them with your cloth nappies and you don't want them to get lost in all that stuff. That will help keep them in one place. So that's one method that some people use, but I haven't tried that one because I have no problem with them going around the washing machine. So I have three methods, I think, here, or around that number, and I'm going to go through them in the order that I started using them. So the first one is the bucket method. This is actually a nappy pail. I bought it from John Lewis, I think, and it has a lid. Lids can be problems though, so I'll tell you why. If it looks a bit dirty, I did just wash it out. But this is the one big downside to buckets. If you use buckets for soaking cloth pads, quite often they get stained like that, so just bear that in mind. But the bucket method basically involves just having a bucket. It doesn't need to have a lid, so don't worry about that. Having a bucket and keeping it either in your bathroom or in your bedroom. That's where I keep it for me. And you can either do a wet store or a dry store. I always store them dry. And what you do is you just go through your cycle, and every time you take off a soil pad, you put it in the bucket, put on a new one. Keep going until the bucket is either full or until you run out of pads. Probably you're more likely to run out of pads if you're newer and you don't have that many pads. With me, I always filled up the bucket by the end of the cycle. I could probably fit my whole cycle's worth of pads in here. So that's what I did. Then you have a couple of options. You can either just take this straight down to your washing machine and throw them in there, and that's another reason you can use a mesh laundry bag. As around here, you just take the mesh laundry bag down to the washing machine with you, or you can just take the bucket and just throw them in. The other thing you can do, if you're really paranoid about staining, is doing what we call a soak, an overnight soak. So you just fill the bucket with water, and this is what I used to do as well. I'd fill it to, if my pads were up to here, I'd fill it up to here. So it's just a little bit more water than the number of pads. And then I'd add half a scoop of some OxiClean in there. I used Vanish and that always worked fine. Use whatever you want. And you leave it to soak overnight. Then in the morning what you do is you take the water, which will be very bloody by that point, and pour it down the toilet. I always took the lid and kind of sieved it like that so the pads didn't fall out, and poured them down the toilet. Poured the water down the toilet. Then you take this down to your washing machine, which for me is in the kitchen, and throw them in the washing machine like that. Then you put them on the normal cycle that you would. I've done a separate video on how to clean them. This is just storing. So that's one method. The bucket method was good. The only thing I will mention though is if you have a lid with your bucket method, never ever do that. If you lock a lid onto your bucket, or have a lid that fully clips on so it becomes airtight, when you take this off, you're going to get the most pungent, musky smell, and it's pretty horrible. It's even worse with cloth nappies, as you can imagine, but with cloth pads, it's still pretty bad. So if you have a lid and you want to use it, just keep the lid on slightly like this, so you still have room for oxygen to get around and you won't get that horrible smell. That's my biggest tip with the bucket. So next we move on to wet bags. The first wet bag that I had, well, first big wet bag that I had was this one by Popolini. And I best describe it as like a giant pad wrapper. It's very simple to make this style of wet bag. So it comes like this with a little popper. And what I always do with this, so what you do is you just open it up and you put the cloth pads in here. And it's quite a decent size. Like I'd say this would hold 3 days worth of pads. For me, maybe 4. I put my fingers in here, I flip that like little cover back, so this is wide open like this. What I do with this particular method is I like to sit this wet bag in my bucket, so it doesn't have its lid on or anything, it just sits in the bucket. And then as I go through my cycle, I use this for panty liners actually, I just keep throwing them in here, and it's just open like that. So again, the oxygen can get in, you won't get any horrible smells. And I never ever rinse out my pads after I've used them. I take them straight off my underwear, fold them up, and put them either into, I now use the wet bag method, so I just put them straight into a wet bag. I never ever rinse them out under the tap or sprayed, stain remover onto them. As some people do if they're really paranoid about staining. That never worried me so much, so I always just put them straight into here. If you have wet pads, so if you take them off and you rinse them out and you spray them, I really wouldn't leave them longer than 2 or 3 days, because what can happen is so many people forget about them and they end up getting mildew. They find them 2 weeks later and they've got mildew on them. That's the most common cause for ruining cloth pads is people forgetting that they've rinsed them out and they've left them in their car or something. That's why I recommend the dry method, and I still think you can get the stains out of them pretty good, but to each their own. So that you can put them in here, and I just leave that in my bucket and I keep going until this is full, and again, take it down to the washing machine, throw it in. So that's this particular wet bag that doesn't have any attachment on it, and that's why it sits in my bucket. Then we move on to my travel wet bag, but the wet bag that I use in my bathroom, and it's my favourite, it's also the one I sell because it's my favourite. And it's got a little hook, so basically you can put this on, and I got my dad to screw onto our bathroom wall like a little, you know, that's the hooks that are in toilets that you can hang your coat on and stuff, basically the coat hook basically. Just quite low down on our bathroom door, so it's right opposite me when I'm on the toilet, because I can reach across and grab this very easily from the way our bathroom is set up. This one has two pockets. There's a pocket up here, and it also has a pocket here. So dry pads can be stored here, wet pads can be stored here. So if you have a bit of an issue with like people seeing your pads, you could just take some at the beginning of your cycle and put them in the dry pocket, and then when you go to the toilet you can just simply take off the soil pad, put it into this wet compartment which is fully lined with PUL, and then take one of the dry pads out with this compartment. So that's how it can work, and that's how it usually works on holiday, and that's why they're called travel bags. But the main thing about using a bag like this that has a zipper is if you find you get nasty smells, like the musky smell I talked about with the bucket, don't zip it up all the way, leave it a bit open like this, or actually don't even bother zipping it up, just leave it fully open, and that should solve your issue. A lot of people like to zip them right up so they're completely locked out. I don't think wet bags are quite as airtight as buckets, so I never have an issue. I tend to pull mine about that far, so there's only a little bit left open, but it allows the oxygen to get round, and I never have an issue with smells. I prefer the wet bag method because it's much more convenient for me the way my bathroom is set up. So I have this on the door, and as I said before, I go to the bathroom, I take off my soil pad, I don't get it wet or anything, I don't spray any sort of stain remover on it or anything, I just take it off, put it straight in here, and then zip it up again. And I keep repeating that method until this bag is full, which is for me at the end of my cycle. I can, you know, use this one bag for my whole cycle. At the end of my cycle, all I do is I go and take this off the hook, unzip this bag like this, open it up, and then I will actually just shake these out into the washing machine like that and throw the bag in afterwards, and you get it clean. The thing with the bucket that you'll have to do is you will have to take the bucket after you've put the cloth pads into the washing machine and wash it out, usually in the bath or something, so it's probably not as convenient, I think, as using a wet bag, and also the wet bag comes in lots of different pretty colours and prints. That's another advantage of it. I think the wet bag method is the best. It's my favourite, but you really have got to figure out which is your favourite, because with the wet bag method, what you can't do is soak them in the wet bag. Some wet bags say you can. Planet Wise, I believe, do say that their wet bag's completely watertight, but I personally wouldn't risk it. So I would just take these, and if you want to soak them in a bucket and you want to use the wet bag method as well, take the wet bag, put them into a bucket, then fill it up with water and soak them, then put it in the washing machine. But personally, I think this is the best because it's the most convenient. So, oh, sorry this video's getting kind of long, guys. I hope that was helpful to you. Some of you may use different methods. If you do, tell me what they are, because these are the best ones that I've found work best for me. So yeah, maybe if someone's asking a question about a different method, then you can help them out. But thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Bye.